Most people trace the birth of go-go music to somewhere around the mid-70s. But go-go doesn't just pop up out of nowhere. It grows out of a bunch of streams that all run through Black Washington, D.C. U Street, 14th and T, and later Georgia Avenue are already full of black clubs with live bands playing jazz, blues, R&B, and early soul. Those bands are used to keeping dancers on the floor with extended jams and cologne response. James Brown, Sly and the Family Stone, and Parliament Funkadelic are the national soundtrack. At the same time, DC is hearing Latin percussion and Caribbean rhythms via bands such as the Los Latinos.
I had been working on this thing, we were doing top 40, and I used to have to break down and do the percussion. And when you break down and do that percussion, they had them congos up in there and them timbales and that Los Latino flavor, which I stole from them when I left. Everybody started getting into that. We were doing 20, 25 songs a night. When I started breaking down doing that percussion, didn't have to do 25 songs a night no more. They loved that percussion and the way, me talking over it, a little bit of rhyming, way before rap ever came out.
Other bands were making waves in the region at the time that is considered the precursor to go-go, like XPDs, the Matadors, the Young Senators, and Black Heat.
We'd break that percussion down and start communicating with the audience, call and response, calling names, birthdays. They calling back. They bring me notes, write notes. Chuck, say this about me. Howard University, blah, blah, blah. And I'm mentioning all that Northwest, Northeast, all four corners of D.C. Everybody loving. Next thing you know, all the tables and chairs in all those places that we were playing, tables and chairs started disappearing. The mink coats and the suits started disappearing.
Because they had been coming all dressed up. And
they parties too hard. They can't dress up now. You know what I mean? All the tables and chairs disappeared. That's what really made me feel good. Everybody dancing.
At some point, Chuck notices something. Every time the band stops between songs, people drift off the floor. So he decides to never stop. One continuous groove with talk, chants, and percussion rolling non-stop is the core innovation of what makes go-go music unique.
The idea came to me when Smokey Robinson had out a song called "Going to the Go da dee da 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 dee da dee dee." So now that gave me an idea to call this particular type of music go-go because it just keeps going and going and going and it don't stop.
Chuck and his band, the Soul Searchers, would continue to grind until they struck gold in 1978 with the release of Bustin' Loose. The record is pure, DC horns and percussion, with a touch of call and response, and it blows up. In early 1979, Bustin' Loose hits #1 on the Billboard R&B chart and crosses over to the pop chart.
Keep what you got until you get what you need, y'all. You got to give a lot just to get what you need sometimes, y'all. Give me the bridge now. I feel like busting loose. Busting loose. Give me the bridge now.
By the late 70s and into the 80s, go-go has become Chocolate City's signature sound as well as nearby Prince George's County. The first of the bands to march through the door that Chuck Brown kicked down would be the illustrious Trouble Funk. What made Trouble Funk so impactful was their ability to merge raw funk power with a uniquely DC rhythmic engine, using congas, rototoms, and call and response chants that pulled entire neighborhoods into the beat. Their anthems like Drop the Bomb, Pump Me Up, and Let's Get Small became not just songs, but cultural statements, influencing everything from go-go bands to hip-hop producers worldwide. Today in 2025, Trouble Funk is still going strong and still led by the great Big Tony, go-go royalty. The next band up would be Experience Unlimited. Formed in 1974 as a rock-leaning band, Their name slightly inspired by the Jimi Hendrix Experience, they were active through the mid-1970s.
One of my members, Gene Lassiter, he said, what about the experience? That kind of made sense because we were experienced little kids. But then me and a guitar player, Donald Fields at the time, he said, what about Experience Unlimited? I said, no, that don't sound right either. So then the experience came from Jimi Hendrix Experience. I like that part. I came with rock and roll. So we said, you know what, that might work. Experience Unlimited. There it is, EU. Jimi Hendrix, right there.
EU is one of the most versatile and influential bands in go-go history. Known for blending rock, funk, and raw go-go percussion into a style that expanded what the genre could sound like, their biggest mainstream explosion came with The Butt in 1988, propelled by the School Days movie directed by Spike Lee, giving go-go one of its first true national hits. But EU's contribution goes far beyond that moment. Their stage shows, extended grooves, and ability to fuse genres helped prove that go-go wasn't limited to one sound or formula. The band that would step up next shifted and shaped the go-go landscape truly like no other. That band would be the Inner City Groovers, the legendary Rare Essence. Rare Essence, formed in 1976 by a group of young musicians in Southeast DC, became one of the most dominant and beloved bands in go-go history. A list of current and former members is comprised by go-go Hall of Famers like James Funk, Little Benny, Jungle Boogie, Go-Go Mickey, Donnell Floyd, White Boy, and the late Quentin Foots Davison. R.E., as they're affectionately known to natives, perfected the live show as the heart of go-go culture, turning every performance into a high-energy conversation with the audience through call and response, breakdowns, roll calls, and neighborhood shoutouts. Their classics like One on One, R.E. Herman, Work the Walls, and Overnight Scenarios shaped the soundtrack of DC across generations. Rare Essence has managed to remain relevant in every era of go-go's history. Their influence runs wide. They helped set the blueprint for the go-go band format, created anthems that still shake the city, mentored younger groups, and became a cultural institution that represents the pride, swagger, and resilience of Black Washington.
Till it's ran all through. And if it's about money, that's true. Move, killer, the animal, a crowd, controller, not Crystal State, but your girl, Zarola.
The next band holds a unique spot in the history of the roots of go-go. Junkyard Band, born in the early 1980s, out of the Berry Farm housing community, is one of the most iconic and culturally significant groups in go-go history. What makes their story legendary is how they started. A group of kids using homemade instruments, buckets, pans, crates, poles, and anything they could beat on them, turned that raw street creativity into a fully recognized musical force. As they grew, they evolved into a full go-go outfit, but they never lost the authentic street-born pulse that made them unique. Junkyard Band embodies the spirit of go-go's origins and proved that you could turn struggle into rhythm, imagination into sound, and a neighborhood into a movement that still inspires the culture today. Other notable bands made up the early go-go landscape as well. Bands like Air Raid, Petworth Band, Hot, Cold Sweat, and Pleasure. Go-Go's first, all-female band. In part 2 of our Go-Go Awareness Week series, we will cover the evolution of go-go and its second generation with bands like Backyard, Northeast Groovers, and the Huckabucks.